What's up with all the sugar laying around? Shadowrun Returns Dead Man's Switch was released in 2013 on Steam and later on GOG and mobile of all things, after one of the most quickly funded Kickstarter campaigns at the time. Jordan Weissman? The co-creator of the original Shadowrun pen and paper RPG spearheaded this reintroduction of the Shadowrun video game franchise. If you like pen and paper RPGs and haven't played Shadowrun, you've at least heard of it. It was the game the other gaming group in town played while you played AD&D. The Shadowrun world managed to successfully take William Gibson's cyberpunk and mix in just the right amount of crime, noir, and fantasy. Shadowrun Returns takes that same formula and puts it into a turn-based tactical RPG better than any other attempt. Even better than the Genesis and Super Nintendo versions. You play as a Shadowrunner, a hired criminal who gets their hands dirty for those who can't or won't get theirs dirty with such petty things like murder, larceny, espionage, or murder. You start out in character creation. Choose your gender, which is inconsequential to the game, then your race. The races are human, elf, dwarf, orc, and troll. These affect your starting stats. For example, elves are more dexterous, trolls are the toughest, and humans get a few more free points to build their character with. After your race, you choose your archetype. Your choices are Street Samurai, which is your ranged combat specialist, Mage, which uses hermetic magic and can summon elementals, Decker, the hacker, Shaman, which draws its magic from nature and can summon nature spirits, Rigger, which in this version of the game uses drones and skips over the vehicle control aspect, and Physical Adept, which is a magic-based melee fighter. If you know nothing about Shadowrun, you might want to start with one of these. If you know Shadowrun, or if you're feeling sassy, you can create a character from scratch. Finally, you fill in your attributes and skills with your starting karma. Karma is what you use for experience points. The higher you want your stats, the more it costs. The descriptions under the skills and attributes are pretty good at explaining what they do, and there's not an overwhelming amount of skills to worry about. You have 6 attributes and each have several skills tied to them, except body. Most of these skills have sub-skills or specialties. For example, under quickness is ranged combat, and below ranged combat is pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, and rifles. Each skill can't be higher than the skill it's tied to in the tree, so your pistol skill cannot be higher than your ranged combat skill, which cannot be higher than your quickness. After you get made, you'll start in your apartment. It's a simple point-and-click interface. Just click where you want to walk and what you want to interact with. If you're not sure what you can interact with, hold Alt. That will bring up an icon over things that you can look at or pick up. After poking around for a bit, your phone will ring and you'll be introduced to your motivation. An old friend, Sam Watts, calls you with a pre-recorded message that activated because he's been killed. He's asking you to investigate his murder and offers you 100,000 nuyen from escrow after you do. At this point, you have a flashback to the last time you saw Sam. This is your tutorial. You have some dialogue to start. In this mission, your dialogue choices won't affect the outcome of anything. In fact, your dialogue choices won't affect the outcome of much in this game, but more on that later. After a while, you get ambushed and the combat tutorial starts proper. You have the option of playing this scenario with help boxes. You should probably do that the first time you play. Select your weapon in the lower left of the screen, left-click on your target, and you'll attack them. Sometimes the target selection isn't the greatest, and you'll wind up running to your target instead of shooting them. If you aim your cursor at their feet, that seems to help. But just take your time and be sure you're actually targeting what you want to target before you click. Combat is turn-based, so you're not in a hurry. The combat mechanic is very close to the pen and paper Shadowrun. You start out with 2 actions per round. That will get higher later on. Moving takes a number of actions depending on how far you move. Complicated actions take more than 1 action. Rifles suck at close range, but are great at long range, grenades scatter, and cover matters. Take advantage of cover. When you move your cursor around looking for a place to move while in combat, these little shield icons show up when you're near cover. The more full the shield is, the better the cover. The better the cover, the less you'll get hit. This is a crucial survival tactic. I do want to mention the Overwatch mechanic. Later on, after you've raised your appropriate skill, you gain the Overwatch ability. This lets you cover an area, like a door, and wait for someone to come by. Your character will wait until an enemy enters their Overwatch area and ambush them. This is a vital strategy in later missions, one in particular where you need to protect your Decker while they infiltrate a computer system. Just keep in mind the enemies will start to use Overwatch 2 later in the game. The AI is pretty good in this game. The enemies try to surround you and take cover. Your teammates won't get stuck on things or forget to go through doors. You control your teammates during combat so they won't do anything you don't tell them to do. Very quickly, you'll learn the #1 rule in Shadowrun. Kill the magic user first. Anyway, back to the tutorial. After you defeat your ambushers, you're brought back to reality. You're railroaded into accepting the job and fly off to Seattle. You arrive at the morgue where your friend's body is being kept. Here you'll read dialogue. A lot of dialogue. This game is a reader. I'm not kidding. You'll read so much dialogue, you could put this game on your summer reading list. That's the style of the game, though. You're investigating a murder. You're not playing Doom. This game reminds me of many of the Shadowrun printed adventures. There's a lot of running around, talking to people, finding out information with a good firefight thrown in here and there for good measure. Then you have a big mission with a major goal to achieve to advance the story. And the story is compelling enough to keep me interested. Like all good stories, there are more sinister machinations at work than you originally are led to believe. I won't give too much away, but there's more behind Sam's death than meets the eye. The story is very linear, though. None of your dialogue options affect the final outcome of the game. All they really do is determine how much karma you get. The general rule is, if you're nice to people, you get more karma. If you're a dick, you get less. You might get a little more money, but I never found money to be a problem, so I say go after the karma. There's at least one situation where your dialogue choices do matter, though. In that mission, if you choose right, you'll prevent an ally's brother from killing themselves. The consequences are minor, though. She'll be sad, but you won't lose her as an ally. It is a tense situation, though, and I was genuinely stressed out while going through it, even playing the second time for this review. There's side missions, usually received from talking to people on the street. You get more karma for doing these, usually. I recommend doing them. There's also cameos, if you're familiar with your Shadowrun lore. There's Jake Armitage from the Super Nintendo game, and this guy. I'll let you figure out who he is on your own. There's other cameos too, but if I told you who they were, that would spoil it. I love this game. I have to admit, though, I'm biased. I love pretty much anything Shadowrun. But what makes this game better than the previous Shadowrun video games I've played is how true it is to the source material. The skills work just how I imagined they would. They kept the atmosphere of the pen and paper game, brought in familiar NPCs and enemies, and the story structure follows my favorite modules from the RPG. The plot twists are believable and are revealed at a good pace. The dialogue trees add flavor, and even if they don't affect the outcome of every conversation, they make me feel like they do. I told you about the linear story and the false choice nature of the dialogue, but if you think about it, most of the RPGs people love are like this. I mean, what choice can you make in the original Legend of Zelda or Final Fantasy that really, truly changes the story? What makes it okay is that you don't feel like you're being railroaded. Sometimes your choices close off one avenue of investigation, but there'll always be another way to achieve your goal. So your choice is really in what kind of character you want to roleplay as, which is what the tabletop game is all about. And I love the tabletop game. The tabletop stories are full of false choices and railroading plots. I know that, but I still want to play. And in the end, isn't that what makes a game good?